Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us live. So, joining me today is Einar Martinsen to discuss his journey on creating the splash screens for Nuke 16. And this is something I'm really excited to get to talk about and share with because it was a really nice project to get to collaborate with Einar on. And, it's something where we want to showcase what work went into it, what was the artistry behind it, and also, hopefully provide some really good insights where you can also engage with. So, there's a Q&A at the end of this. So please feel free to add any questions you have for Einar and myself into the chat box and we can answer it live at the end. And if you're really excited about today's live stream and want to see things more like it, please make sure to subscribe and like this video. That stuff is always really helpful. So, Einar, thank you so much for joining us today. We're, as I said, really excited to look at your behind-the-scenes look of what it takes to make such beautiful splash screens and artwork, because it was definitely a nice journey to go on with you to collaborate and for you to fulfill such a nice vision, I think, for what you first see when opening Nuke. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and thanks for the introduction. And likewise, I loved collaborating with you guys on this project. It was a little dream come true in my opinion, for me. So
That's
I had
great.
super fun. I had so much fun working on this one, and yeah, I'm happy to be here. So my name is Einar. I work as currently work as a visual effects art director, but my background is concept art, matte painting, and visual effects in general. So I love artwork, and yeah, that's why I'm here today.
No, that's great. And I think that really came through when we were, for a little behind the scenes on our side. We, tried to reach out and pull artists in to see who would be willing to contribute and help work with us to build the splash screens. And I remember when we were looking at your artwork originally, you could really see the craft that you've built over the years. And, there was a strong vision already early on when we started talking to you about what to go forward with.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I was surprised that you kind of wanted to go into a direction like this because it was a little bit different from what you guys have done before.
Mm.
So that got me really excited of and surprised. Like, oh, we can do something that looks a bit like visual effects in movies and fantasy, and that got me really inspired and yeah, really excited to work with you guys.
I think that's one of the nice things from our side as well. Is because you're right. Some of the splash screens before we've gone more abstract in style, and we've explored, what can be a more just based on colors, mood, feeling, those things in an abstract sense. But what I thought was really nice when looking at your work initially as the inspiration was that sort of connection to, well, comp is many things, and we can tell the story through many different types of beautiful images. And at the time, I remember looking at your work and feeling, well, this is the kind of artwork, especially for me early on, when I was starting my art journey, that I was really
Mhm.
drawn to anyway. So I think you had a bias in me there where I was just like, that's a really hits home of what I got into artistry for. So yeah, I was quite passionate about exploring that kind of style.
Oh, that's really cool. Oh, I'm happy to
Shall
hear
we
that. I,
shall we go a bit into what you actually steps you took to create this artwork then? Because I believe you've already prepared something to showcase through that work.
yeah, I did. Yeah, sounds good. We can jump into that, so we have some time for the Q&A afterwards. Hi, and welcome to this presentation of Nuke 16 splash screen artwork that I was so fortunate to do for Foundry. So I'm just going to jump in by saying, who am I? Well, I am an artist. I work as a visual effects art director. I have been doing concept art and matte painting and CG generalist things through my whole career. I also love doing traditional artwork, photography, and I started drawing as a kid, went to art school, and then went to 3D film school, worked a bit as a freelancer before I got a job at a film studio in 2010. And that's where I first started using Nuke. And also on the image you see here on the sides, I have put up a lot of my artwork from my website. Here's a collection of a lot of personal artwork and some professional. The reason why I'm showing that is because I believe in creating your own artwork whenever possible. If that is your passion or doing research on what you like, I think that is super important for your own well-being and also getting jobs and landing new jobs in the future. So I ended up staying 5 years working in the film studio in Norway, and I took a chance at that time to apply for my dream job overseas. I had no expectation of that ever going anywhere, but by some luck and chance, I was able to get a job at Weta Digital. That was my dream job. I was over the moon with excitement and couldn't believe it. It was supposed to be just 1 year overseas, but I ended up staying there for 8 years. And after being many years as a map painter in Weta Digital, I switched back over to do more concept art, and I was lucky to work on a movie called Troll for Netflix for a Norwegian director, and I was able to work with him and design the troll you see there. And later I joined Paramount to work on Time Bandits, and that was the first time I got to work on set, which was a blast of an experience to see how everything moves so quickly every day with actors and crew on site. It was a super fun project and a very educational one. After that, I went back to Rings of Power, and I must say that was my career highlight because Lord of the Rings is what started my whole fascination with working in film. And getting to work on a Tolkien project was a full circle for me. I couldn't believe how lucky I was. And sort of complete the full circle of why I wanted to go to New Zealand in the first place. I absolutely love artwork, and I love working together with other people to create large projects like this. To be a part of something bigger is amazing. But enough about me. Let's talk about the Foundry project that I was fortunate to work on last year. The brief was to create 10 different images in different moods and color that was going to represent the Nuke Family products. The brief from the client was pretty open. It was they had a couple of guidelines, a couple of requirements, and but overall there was a lot of creative freedom and a lot of excitement and collaboration in the team, I felt. So that made me comfortable with making a pitch for what I thought it could be. So the pitch was the node tree. When I started this project, I wanted, by the brief of the Foundry and also my own thinking, was that I wanted to create something grand and epic and fantasy, large scale, something that could be 10 different images at the same time. So I started thinking about large environments, different time of year, different lighting scenarios, etc. And an idea came to mind because I love Norse mythology things and creating artwork within that world. And there's a tree of life, the tree Yggdrasil. It is a large tree that encompasses all the different realms, and it has branches between the realms, and somehow that sort of started connected with a phrase that I've heard in Nuke and doing compositing in the past, and that is the node tree, how you do your nodes and composite. And another thing that made a lot of sense with the node tree was all these different realms and branches and how they all come together as one trunk, is sort of the same idea about the Nuke tools and how they are many different tools, many different realms, but they all communicate and work together, and they output sort of the same goal in a way. So I thought that idea with the Yggdrasil, the tree of life, and all the different new products, they all would go really well together. So what I did then is I started gathering some references. And here are some references of projects and a Lord of the Rings references that I really like. There's also some of my own references in here, and that's because the Foundry sent them to me as references they liked. So I thought that was a really nice compliment. And also it made me more comfortable in going down this route of creating something in my own style and in a Norse mythology fantasy world. So I started planning out this top-down view, as you can see here. In the image on the left is a tree, and then there's a village sitting on a rock, and there's platforms that are going to have boats on it launching from it. That was my thinking. So what I did then is I started to do some pencil drawings. These are not anything that I would show because I'm personally, I don't think they're very good, but I thought I'd show them here because it's a part of the process, and it's good to go out of your comfort zone sometimes and show things that you're not happy with, because the point is, I would definitely recommend anyone who wants to create to just sit down with a piece of paper and pencil and try to work out some ideas, because it's easy to get all the bad ideas away that way, and then you might find something good and enjoy the process even more doing so. And yeah, you don't have to show them. like I did here. But anyways, so next up I was doing some work in progress images that I was sharing with the team, and we were going back and forth on notes. There weren't many notes at all, to be honest, because they were very easy to work with at Foundry, and they gave me a lot of freedom, which I really appreciated, and I was able to push the project much further that way, I believe. So here's the sort of main platform rock that I was using this program Gaia to create this, and then I would cut this up and move it into ZBrush and sculpt it and extend it further, and then bring it into Blender as the 3D package that I was going to use for the images. Here's more landscapes that I created for the distant landscapes around the project, and here is a recording of the whole scene, and it's super heavy. That's why I'm showing you in gray shaded state here, because it was very heavy to maneuver, and it pushed my computer to the limits for sure. We'll see what I mean once we get a little bit further in and see all the duplicates and details. But this served as a really good base for creating all the different images and the moods that we were going for. 10 different images. There was a lot of different variation we needed. So having a really solid 3D base really helps, and especially the way that Foundry worked together with me was great, because we were on the same page and we communicated well early on. That's not always the case, so you gotta, a tip is to keep things very flexible so you can change them, which I also did here, but I've been used to doing that my whole career. But that's a tip I can give to other people is, try and be methodical and name things and keep it structured, because changes will come at some point. The thing you can already see here that you could probably create some nice compositions depending on camera lenses that you can use here, and really create some drama and storytelling in your images. And that's what I ended up doing. All right, so I'm just gonna jump over to, this is one of the final images. I quite enjoyed this one. I think it's the main image for the splash screens. What I like about it is that it's quite light, and it has like a lot of selective lighting. Like I chose specifically that I wanted the light to hit areas like these, create long shadows, so we could read the buildings and sort of look at the storytelling points, like this area, and then it makes you look over here and over here and over here. I'm thinking a lot like this when I create images, and I also think about composition and balance. Like I want your eye to go in here and look like a curve, like the golden triangle area of the image, but also have like a horizon line that lives quite high up, so you get more space here and less space up here. Just certain simple rules that I try to use, and also be a little bit selective with the lighting. You see, there's a lot of places here that are just shadow, and I like that. Like things it's nice when things disappear into shadow or smoke or haze. Sometimes less is more. So here's a black and white version of the same image, and here's one that is kind of cool, because we have northern lights here in Norway, so I wanted to do an image showing northern lights. It made a lot of sense for this project. So I have the moon behind the tree here, creating all these nice light rays through the smoke and the night sky with the northern lights. Thought this one was kind of fun to do, because it's also very simple, and it has the same sort of idea of composition and simple storytelling as the other one. You see that go in the same thing for a lot of the images, except for this one. This one is very symmetrical, and it's very intentional, because it's fun to have something that is a little bit different. This large circle center area kind of reminds me a little bit of like something Kubrick would do. Very everything is like very symmetrical. Or early oil paintings had like this sort of very architectural and symmetrical thing. So it's sort of different rule sets for images that I try to follow, and breaking the rules sometimes too is also helpful. Like in this image, breaking the rules of gravity with the ships, and also the scale of the tree. It's just fun fantasy elements you can do to sort of break the rules in in a more realistic lighting or illustration scenario. Here's other image. You see my composition trick doing the same thing here. Here's kind of an arrow pointing out to these different things that are going to launch out into the world. Sort of the ideology of the project that I was mentioning. I like to put in a lot of thinking and a lot of hidden meaning in the images like this. Also trying to sell scale is quite fun and quite a challenge too. It's very hard to make a tree this large, make it believable. So here's an animated image that I will look at more soon. Here's the winter one that I was talking about. You know, same sort of idea here. Here's one image that I created in this format, so it could be. I was thinking you could use this as a poster if you wanted to print this out in any A4, A3, A2 formats. That was the idea behind this one, and also playing that symmetrical design again, because it fits really well with the subject matter of the tree and the village and the platforms to have that symmetry. So here's a crop in of that previous image, and next one here is what I like to think about as the last image, where the ships are actually launching out, and you know, same sort of composition idea that I mentioned here as well. But I love it when things are backlit. It creates such an interesting look in clouds, and being again very selective with the lighting when you have rim lighting hitting things, but everything is mostly shadow. I really enjoy that, and I think it's quite effective. The less you show, the more you show in a way. Alright, so here we are in Nuke, and I want to show you how I utilized Nuke to create this animated splash screen image for Foundry. This super fun to do actually, because I got to jump in and do my my own sort of style of compositing, which is coming from a map painting background. I'll show you what that looks like, how I use Nuke for this sort of approach. We'll take a quick look here at the node tree. Here you see the whole idea behind the project, as you can see here in Nuke. Here's the node tree and the node graph. This is how I like to work. I have my top of the tree here with the layers, and they spread out like branches, and then they combine into a trunk at the end and gets rendered out. And that was the sort of ideology behind the whole project. Let's jump back in and start from the top. So this all started from a 3D scene, and here's one of the passes that I created from my render. This is my favorite pass to use. This is the depth pass, the geometry distance, you could say, and it creates a mask from black to white, and it's super useful for doing stuff like adding more depth and atmosphere into your image, making it look bigger in scale. That way, you can also mix in smoke and cool elements into a pass like this, which is what I've done for this one. I'll show you what that looks like. So here I've taken a smoke element and I mixed it together with the depth pass, which gives you this really quick and easy smoke element that sort of sits in depth. And to me it's like magic. It makes the image come to life so quickly. And you don't have to do like heavy 3D simulations like this. You can combine a 2D element with a flat 2D background and a mask depth pass, and it's so cool. I love using this approach for a lot of different things in map painting. So jump back to the beauty pass here, the render. This is the beauty pass with a little bit of enhancement in map painting wise, you know, using some real photography, adding in some reference for the waterfall, and then I keep the alpha so I can use this image to put it on top of sky. So the next part here is taking that foreground and putting it on top of the background sky that I have here. And what's cool about this is that you can animate this sky to make it come to life. It's a very efficient trick, and you can apply this to multi-layered skies with multiple clouds to make it like look quite convincing in a shot. But I just did it in a very simple way for this one, where I warped the whole sky. And if I go scrub through the timeline here, you can see the sky is moving quite a bit through the shot. And this is the whole approach for everything in the scene, by the way. Like I have something flat in 2D, and then I do a couple of fun tricks to make it come to life. So moving waterfalls, that's very heavy usually to do in CG. But here I did the Nuke approach, where you take a 2D element of waterfalls, moving waterfalls, and then you mask them in, you grade them in, you integrate them in with roto shapes, warps, retimes, and they can work really efficiently on top of like matte painting shots. We'll keep going down the node tree here. Here you can see the waterfalls, the smoke is coming together. The next thing which is cool is volume rays, which is a node in Nuke that creates these sort of volume light rays or God rays and puts them on top. You can put them on top of your image and they move and flicker, especially when the background moves, because the sky moves throughout the image, and then it creates the illusion of, you see here, if I jump 2 frames, it creates this flickering motion in the God rays. And it's quite convincing when you apply it in a very subtle way to your image. Here's some more smoke coming in. Here's I started to add like a couple of flying leaves into the shot just to give it some more life. And another cool thing I wanted to show you is I created these 3D rendered trees inside a Blender. I rendered them out separately so I can put them on top of the image or move them around and duplicate them around the scene to give it more depth and life. And they move quite a lot, which is actually quite helpful in this case to make it come to life, especially when everything else is moving in the image. So this is what that looks like. Combined here, I moved them around a bit. I duplicated a few more. There are also some moving ones in the background. And then what I've done here is I added some cool air particles that are very effective to moving on top of your image to give it some more life. It seems like flowers and bugs and beautiful things flying on top of your image. Let's jump down to the bottom here. And one last thing that I wanted to show you that I've done throughout the whole script actually is I'll just go full screen here. What I've done is that every single element that is separated from each other and composited together have a subtle animation on them in terms of scale. So they get scaled up a little bit based on how far away they are from camera, and that gives an illusion of a camera move. I'll show you what that looks like in the final image, and you try and pay attention to that and see like how everything is moving together. And you can probably spot my whole illusion that way, and you can see how fun it is to bring like 2D flat elements together and then just sell it as a real idea. I think that's a cool thing to do because it gives you a lot of creative freedom and makes you have fun with Nuke and be very efficient and creative in your workflow. So if you didn't know any of these tricks before, I hope you enjoyed watching this and I hope you learned something from it. And that brings us to the last image. So here I'll show you the final shot that I was breaking down in the Nuke script. So hopefully you can see a lot of the tricks and illusions that I was showing there, and I'll play this a couple of times. But I must say it was really fun to work on this, and it was fun to do illustrations and also use Nuke in the process of doing this, and do it for Foundry. Like I've been using Nuke for so long, and being so fortunate to be able to create splash screens for them was very humbling, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. So thank you so much, Foundry, for giving me the chance, and thank you for checking out my process, and I hope you enjoyed it. So thank you.
That was great, Einar. Really nice to get a peek behind the curtain about how you went about the process. So, I mean, we'll leave people in chat to pick up questions if they have any, but I want to selfishly ask some questions if that's okay as well, because I think what you did a great job there was sort of explaining, obviously, your process and how you thought about the work. What I'm also interested in exploring with your experiences is what is it like to build for clients, and how do you approach the work in a sense where, we were the client in this instance, and it was nice that you thought we were positive to work with. I think a lot of us in in Foundry have been in the industry and have had nightmare clients, so we never want to be that for other artists. But what is it that you're thinking about in terms of when you were first showcasing the brief, or when we first showed interest and were saying, could you show us more? How did you go about approaching evolving your idea in a mindset of efficiently doing work so you weren't wasting time, but also getting across what you felt the vision should be?
Right. So to try and answer that one, there's kind of two different ways of my experience that I've been working as a freelancer for a while now. So oftentimes I've been working directly with clients, and then I have all the responsibility on me, and then you got to be very very systematic with the way you work, so you can make changes or you can adapt to requests coming in. These things are still the same if you work in a studio, but it's a little bit easier when you work in a studio because you have a team around you and you have more paths to choose. I kind of like both. I wouldn't mind switching back and forth between the two, but I'm sure you have some of that experience as well, Chris. And
Yeah.
the thing is, yeah, to try and answer your question, it when you're alone and you get a brief like this, for you guys, working with you guys, it was very easy because it was a lot of creative freedom. But when that's not always the case, you kind of have to rely on your experience or take advice from other people and try and be very systematic and be very clear in your communication with the client. Make a plan and collect a lot of reference and check in, ask more questions rather than assuming what to do.
Yeah.
Because even though it's a client relationship, it still should be open communication, in my opinion.
No, that makes complete sense. And I guess as the project evolved, and for us, it was clear early on the vision you had was one that was easy to get behind and support. It wasn't like, oh, this, you were making choices which were like, oh, we don't feel comfortable with that. It was like all the choices you were making were just elevating the design. But as the project progressed, and the complexity grew in terms of, I think, hack tech. You were kind enough to put a mention about, at one point you were saying using a heavier asset, you were starting to break it up. How did you start to optimize your scene as you've built the vision, but then we're like, oh, I'm going to choose to do the waterfalls in comp rather than do them in a 3D package for efficiency? What was your thought process there? Was it
Yeah.
just the best tool for the job, or did you have different thoughts going into it?
Yeah. So the way to break that down is, in the case of us working together, we had that plan and the reference, and I was showing you work in progress along the way, and that kind of helped it to get to a very complex state. You can still do that if you get changes, but the most important thing to think about is when you approach any sort of work, you should think about it as like you building a house or a building. You start with the big pieces and the foundation, and then you put your carrying structures, and you go smaller and smaller later. And that, what I mean by that is like you add more detail in later when once you know the direction is quite secure. When it comes to like blades of grass or trees or waterfalls, for this I left all that to the very end because I know these things are very complicated, so I want to set the look first, and
Mm.
then when you guys are happy, or if I do it for myself, when I'm happy with where I've ended up, now I can start to add these sort of details in. And choosing the right tools and approach for the job, yeah, it matters a lot. Like I stumble a lot still. Like I've been working for 15 years, and I've been fortunate to work on over 50 projects, but I feel like every new project I'm like, oh, I know how to do it better this time. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I may make mistakes all the time, and I there's many ways to optimize and do it smarter. But hey, that's the name of the game. That's the process.
That makes complete sense. Just to round up on Hacktech's final question there for selecting the right system for Nuke. I know that's not fair to ask you that question, so I'll handle that one.
Yeah.
Really, it comes down to obviously your use cases. We always try to put a recommended spec that we test on our website, but we understand that that's not always you know for everyone in terms of what they need. I think you should ask yourself, what is it that you're most commonly doing in Nuke or looking to do? So if you're mainly using it for 2D comp work and things like that, Nuke works really well on CPU processing, but there's some nodes that you might want GPU acceleration for, and that's when you'd start exploring, do I want a more powerful GPU for it? I think machine learning right now is a perfect example of a space where, thinking about if you want to delve in that space, using hardware for the workflows is the way I'd start to explore it. So I appreciate that's not a this card, this CPU kind of answer, but what I'd say is the best way is to look at what are your needs in compositing and then build your system to suit those needs and then allow for growth for future workflows. One of the other things I guess I wanted to talk about with you, Einar, was, even before all the getting to the heaviness of the 3D models or things like that, I like the fact that when you were showcasing and marking on the images, you were talking about how you were leading the eye and how you were making choices around color or exposure, or just, how you were thinking about the image from just a purely artistic point. How do you find, or how did you build that knowledge or skill set to say this is what makes a good image and help that define your look?
Yeah. It's I love that question, by the way, because it's a super important one, because it is the whole building block of you creating anything, is to focus on the basics. And in this case, we're talking about composition, and something that I started learning in art school, where we would break down like old master paintings, and we would see like how they used composition and how they used different things in the image, like from big, medium, and small, and where they place them, where you put your horizon. And it sort of grows in complexity from there, right? You can get more and more complex with perspective and color and lighting and other choices. But composition is one of those fundamentals, I think. It's very important to think about, because it will shape everything in your image. How you It's not just art school you can learn this from. You can go on a site that I really like. Is I don't know if you heard about a site called ShotDeck, but it's
No,
um,
I haven't heard Shot Deck.
yeah, it's a collection where you can search through movies, and you can look up your favorite cinematographer, and you can really study what they do, how they use composition and lighting, and uh, how they place characters. And I like to think about that and look at history. From oil paintings all the way over to really good cinematographers. Like they're experts at this. So I like to go online and look at what they do, or go to a museum and try to think like, okay, what were they thinking? How did they do that? And sometimes you work with mentors throughout your careers. You work with people who are better than yourself, and you learn from them. So um, that's another beautiful thing to work in collaboration with other people. Is that is the best school to go to.
Yeah, actually, I mean, Vish, I'll get to your question because I think that's a really good one also. But while we're on the topic of, I guess, mentorship and stuff, I'm kind of
Mhm.
interested because I know for a lot of artists now into the space, they're in a different world than I think we were when we joined the
Yeah.
industry. I remember sitting down and being next to experienced artists, and they would look over my shoulder and uh, they would gently correct me in the right direction, looking at my node graph and saying that's not the way to do that. Whereas now, I
Yeah.
think with everyone a lot more remote working, I think it's a bit more
Mhm.
challenging. Is that something that you've experienced later in the shift in the industry? Do you have any guidance you'd recommend for younger artists or new artists for how you can collaborate with someone more experienced like yourself now?
Yeah, it is. It's become harder with the remote work, but I think a lot of people after COVID started to now go back to the office, and schools have the same thing. Or you can go to workshops, to meet people. Like I've done, the in-person work, and like you learn from really good mentors, and then I've been through working remotely for maybe 5 years already now, where you actually have to put an effort into try to learn from other people, or be disciplined and learn online, which is it's a challenge. But the great thing now is that there's so much accessibility out there.
Mhm.
Like when we started out, like I remember there wasn't that many videos or things. I would buy like things like Nomen DVDs back in the day, but they were so expensive I could only buy one, and so I just
Yeah.
kept watching that over and over until I got better. And and also books and stuff. But I mean, it's the same. It's a little bit different. It's more accessible now, but the sad thing is like it's less in person. So I would recommend if you can go and hang out with other people, or go to events where you meet like-minded people. I would do that. I do that myself. I went to one in Paris a couple of months ago, where I met some of the best artists in the world, and I felt like, wow, I can't believe I get to meet some of these people.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll echo that because for me, not being on the artist side anymore, more on the product side, I have
Mhm.
opportunities to go to things like FMX as a conference, and there I get to meet all artists again and a lot of my old colleagues and stuff. But those are
I
the
never been
spaces.
to that one, by the way. Sorry for
Oh,
interrupting, but
really
FMX
good.
is
So
like a
that's
good
great.
one I've heard. Yeah.
I really like FMX. It's got such a good easygoing vibe to it. Like there's loads of fascinating talks. You're always going to get really interesting talks to go to, but more importantly for me is all the people around you. It's easy to just have conversations about art,
Yeah.
like talk like we're talking now. The amount of
Great.
conversations I've had, which has been this kind of thing, sharing with like-minded individuals and building up your network a little bit as well.
Mm.
So I feel like stuff like that's really good. And from our side at Foundry, we do try to put on social events as well where we can to that try to keep the industry connected. So keep an eye out on our socials for anything like that going forward. I mean, I'm going to loop back to Vish's question because I liked it. He asked,
Yeah.
"Where do you draw inspiration?" Clearly, there's a lot of love for Tolkien, but are there any lesser known references you might point to? And he really appreciated the mention of Shot Deck as well.
Hey, cool. Yeah. Oh, I mean, inspiration comes from so many places. I mean, man, there's so much to grab from. Like some very recent stuff is, Love, Death, and Robots is cool because you get to see so many different styles in a short go. I find that very inspirational. And artists like there's a couple of oil painters. We Many of us have heard of Giger, but there's also another artist that maybe is my favorite is Beksinski. You should look up his artwork if you haven't seen it. It's incredible that people could do this in traditional media in like the 60s, 70s, and 80s before we were using computers. Like
Mm.
drawing inspiration from the past is I like to do that because I get amazed by the skill level, and I feel like how can I ever live up to the same sort of standard of quality? I don't know. It's even
Yeah,
possible. I
I
want to
completely
try.
understand. Yeah, I mean, for myself, even though he's a more modern artist, I really, really enjoy Simon Stylberg's art. I think he does a great job of creating evocative storytelling in an image. And it's the same
Mhm.
things like you were saying earlier about going to museums and studying paintings. And it's like you do that, and then you look at more contemporary artists, and all of their work is built on those same fundamentals. You're seeing the same stories and beats, but now through a lens which might be something that engages with you a bit more. I just love robots, and I love
Yeah,
the Americana aspect of the artwork of Simon. But those things I think really flow well into each other.
yeah.
There was actually a question early on. The name was from YouTube channel, but I assume it's there's a person underneath that. And it says, "Hello from Antarctica. The splash screen outlet looks very similar to my city here under the ice cap. We too have a tree with waterfall as the ice from above. Are you from Antarctica?"
Yeah, that's funny.
I love that
Yeah.
one. Just you're not from Antarctica, are you? You're from Norway, I believe.
All right. Yeah.
Uh, but I
Waterfalls,
guess
ice from
what
above, melting. Well, yeah. I mean, you could almost see like the inspiration of the tree that I have here is, obviously very fantasy based. But you can draw inspiration from caves and even glaciers and glacier ice caves here where the water is melting, falling down.
yeah.
Maybe that's what they're referring to. Too. It's a reference point, but
No, that makes
it's
sense.
certainly a place where you can draw a lot of inspiration for large scale, right? In Antarctica.
One thing I would be interested actually as well in understanding is now that you've got a number of years under your belt, more experience. What is it that you look to do to continue challenging yourself to discover new things? I feel like you mentioned earlier that the opportunity to go on set was a really important
Mm.
moment for you. Do you feel like you have other things you're looking to do, or are you just waiting to discover them more than know what they're going to be?
Yeah. I feel like I'm always behind the curve. Like I have a little bit of what do you call it, imposter syndrome. It's like
Yeah.
you never feel like you're good enough, and also it sort of amplifies every time that I learn something new, like going on set and you see other departments and how good they are and what they do. You're like, oh wow, there's more to this. And when you meet an artist that is incredible at what they do, you realize, oh, there's another level here. There's another level, another level. So it's always trying to chase that, but not letting your imposter syndrome take over. It's I still find it very inspiring to see that there are people who are much better than myself, and that's what it should be. I can strive to become better, and I'm never happy or very satisfied with my own work. Maybe to a degree that, oh yeah, I like that, but now I want to try and get better or get cooler ideas and focus on that.
I think that's a really, really great thing to share because I also definitely had imposter syndrome at my part in parts of my career as well. And I actually think it's a very natural part of being an artist.
Yeah.
So, for anyone in the chat who might be feeling that way or things like that, I can guarantee most of the great artists that I know, yourself included, have felt that way. It just feels like not maybe true for everyone. Some people can have that confidence all the way through, but I think
Mhm.
knowing that you've still got growth in you, there's still more ahead, and it's fine to feel like you don't know everything is really part and parcel with being a VFX artist.
Yeah. Like I had to get used to getting compliments. Like I wouldn't believe it myself. I'm like, no, this is terrible. I don't like my own artwork. What are you talking about? But yeah, there's. I'm glad to have. I'm very glad to have a little bit of that feeling because I never want to get rid of that. Like I always want to try and get better, and the the best way to get better is to collaborate with more people. Honestly, just more people you can get to work with, the more you're going to learn. So and grow. So that's a
Uh,
beautiful thing about it. Yeah.
I like the fact that Cool VFX was kind enough to share about a waterfall he created for a feature film that got simulated in 2 months and with one fail. Like, there's always journeys that people go on. My one was I did lighting and rendering and comp for a tree for Maleficent, and then
Oh,
watching the
yeah,
final film, the tree was hidden behind a rock. So all of this work that I'd done just out the window because it was hidden.
that's funny. It's happened to me many, many times where you worked on entire sequences that disappear.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess coming through the journey of creating these splash screens and the work now, given that there's a part of you which clearly is always wanting to improve and look at what you can do,
Mhm.
is there anything that on reflection you look at the splash screen work and you'd say this is how I would change my approach, or this is how I would evolve the idea?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think I would if I did this again, I would try and challenge myself to do parts of it in something like Unreal Engine, for example. It's impressive to see how powerful that one is. And I've seen that Nuke is starting to integrate a little bit with the renders from that program into Nuke as well. So I'm like, then maybe that's would be the next one, because yeah, pushing myself and trying to push the look and the real time aspect is exciting. But I mean, you always run into to roadblocks though. So yeah, I think you have to have a sort of a plan B in that case as well.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I mean, yeah, I always advocate for use the best tool for the job, and
Yeah.
sometimes you have to discover the best tool. So I think with all these new workflows that are being opened up to artists, whether they're real time workflows via Unreal, or whether they're looking at new workflows with machine learning or AI. I mean, there we have to be careful because for us
Mm.
from Foundry side, we want to put artists front and center of that. We don't
Yeah.
believe in the idea of taking artist jobs or things like that. It's more about how can this
Mhm.
be a tool that makes you faster, gives you the ability to focus on the creativity rather than the laborious aspects. But I guess for you,
I agree.
how do you balance jumping into a new technology while having to deliver client work and stuff like that?
That's the challenge, right? That's the thing where you got to push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit to learn more. But that's what I meant with having a little bit of a plan B. You got to make sure you can deliver on time as well. So I wouldn't experiment on the client's dime, like 100%. But I would maybe take a couple of aspects of, okay, I'm going to try and learn while I'm working on this. If that didn't work out, then I at least have my plan B. I know I'm going to finish the project. You know, so I will be cautious and plan it well. To do new things while we're working on client projects. But
Yeah.
I spend a lot of my free time, researching or doing my own artwork. That's where I get to push and I get to fail a lot. So when there's a new job coming in, maybe I learned a new tool that I can help me along. And just to touch on the last one, I agree with the sort of AI sense thing there too. That if there's a tool that helps you get faster, that's good. But I would never outsource the fun part or the creative part or the human part of being an artist. Like, why would you?
Yeah,
What's the
and
point?
I think part of it is when we were talking about the effort you've gone to learning composition, to studying cinematographers, to studying how colors
Mhm.
work and lenses, essentially building that rule book of knowledge for what makes a good composite. But then also, I think we spoke before this chat about breaking rules as well,
Yeah.
knowing where you should break a rule in order to enhance the image or help tell the story. I think those
Mhm.
are the spaces where machine learning is never going to replicate what you can do as an artist. Instead, if it can
Right.
help you fulfill those things, like build that story, that's fine. But you want to be
Yeah.
there shaping that image still.
Hmm. And there's so many examples in movie and entertainment history where people create something and they run into a happy accident. Maybe the
Mm.
machine wouldn't run into that one, as often or the same
Yeah,
way. And also, working on creating these new things together. The thing is, like, when you have a beautiful image on screen, usually it's a result of hundreds of people. Even in my case, with the images that I created here are uh, possible because I use tools like Nuke and Photoshop and Blender.
yeah.
um, that's the way I like to look at tools. Is like it enables artists to express themselves more.
Cool VFX. I saw your comment for bringing back V-Ray to Nuke being an amazing tool. We are actually working on some ray trace rendering inside of the new 3D system. So there's some workflows there that hopefully we can give that workflow back, but with some enhancements there. So yeah, welcome Hugo. No worries being late. Always nice to have you join. So I guess also Einar, from this project, is there anything that you'd recommend for anyone wanting to embark on projects like this? Like, how do you start getting yourself out there? Because part of the process was obviously showcasing your work, and you've already mentioned about doing stuff in your spare time. Is there a thing
Mhm.
where it's like you keep a lot of your ear to the ground or things like that to see these opportunities come up? Like, what's the best way you find to engage with? It doesn't have to be this, but just community driven events to help further your artwork.
Right. So, are you meaning to push yourself, your own artwork mostly?
Yeah, I feel like
Uh,
for anyone in the chat who might be looking at what you've done here and think, how
yeah,
like
how
want to
you
take,
would tackle a project like this from the
yeah,
from the beginning, or if I look at it from, like, for example, a student's perspective. I've been there myself, and if you want to get in and then at some point create similar looking artwork, or similar things, um, or you're something completely different. The thing that matters is that you choose something that you're passionate about. Like, in my example, it is creating artwork. But at the same time as you focus on what you like, you should try and learn and keep your ear to the ground, and learn other tools along the way. Try to build like a generalist level of knowledge, because that's only going to help you to tackle more. And you'd be surprised. Maybe you change your what you like later on. Maybe you thought you were going to be an animator, but you ended up as a compositor. Those things can
mm,
happen. But it can only happen if you're curious to learn a lot of different things. Maybe you find what's perfect for you along that way. So that would be like something I would recommend. Yeah, that's the
yeah,
only way you would maybe spend your evenings to do something, right? If you have the passion for it.
definitely. I mean, I started out as a lighting artist and then moved into comp
Hey.
afterwards. But
Yeah,
no,
it's funny. I started out as a generalist, and then went to matte painting and concept art, and yeah, full on matte painting, and then back to concept art, and it changes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Uh, cool VFX. I just want to address your question quickly as well, mate. Um, Foundry feels the pain of the industry like everyone else. So when there's ups and downs, it affects all of us. We're still really strong as a team, though, and continuing forward. So, you know, this is something where we're looking to continue trying to build the software that hopefully you all love and continue building stuff that will excite everyone for years to come. So yeah, it's a small industry, and I think we all feel the shapes and turbulence of things. I guess with the industry progressing as it has, Einar, have you
Mhm.
felt there's anything important to be doing now to prepare yourself for future work or for how you help yourself stand out in a landscape that's shifting a little bit?
Yeah, it is a difficult question. Like I thought about it, like we everyone thinks about it, and it's hard to answer it, right? Because it's kind of impossible to predict the future. So even in the thing of if there's layoffs, if there's AI, if there's things happening, I sort of try and double down on what I enjoy doing and focus on that. um, Not being stubborn and ignoring everything, but try and just focus on what makes me happy and work hard on that. Be open minded to that things might change, and then you try and be adaptive, try and be positive. um, you know it's no one likes shifting things, but if it's happened to you that you had to change paths before, um, to prepare yourself, maybe then try to learn something new, and getting out of your comfort zone is going to help you in the long run overall. So if a big change happened, then you're more prepared.
Yeah, and I think it also touches back to some of the journey that you were expressing earlier, and for me as well. I
Mm.
think it's, in our industry, there's a lot of skills you can specialize into and things like that. And I think that's
Mhm.
completely valid, especially when you're working for someone like Weta or things like that. They probably are looking for a specialist skill set in a lot of use
Oh,
cases. But if you can build it on the foundations of some good generalist knowledge, that's always going to be a positive. It's always going to help you be flexible. It's always going to help you understand how to communicate and work with the artists around you who might not be in your discipline. And I mean, I don't know about you, Einar, but some of the things that I enjoy most doing separate to comp is exploring other workflows, modeling, tool
yeah.
sets, things which I know I suck at because I don't spend the time with it that I should. But at least gives me a window into how I can build something that I can use in the comp space for myself, and then it allows me to understand there's a better workflow here
Oh yeah,
that I could and things like that.
I second that a lot, and that's great advice, and something I try to do as well. Because yeah, I'm happy to learn new things and jump into something that I suck at, and I'm gonna suck at it, and that's okay. But it it helps you communicate better with other artists if you try and learn more about what they do, and vice versa. You're gonna have a better time in the end when you because there's thousands of people who work on a large movie, like for example Avatar, right? When you think about it, it's like the more you can learn about other people's jobs, and the more you're going to have in common with them, and the better your life is going to be, and the more opportunities you have as well.
Well, I mean, I remember listening to or watching one of the talks that the Weta team did for Avatar, and the amount of effort that went into all the water simulation work and all the tool sets there. And you see the scale of the work, but also the knowledge, the varied knowledge that goes into it. Like the amount of
Yeah.
people it takes to try to understand how to accurately simulate and create a visual digital representation of water.
Hmm.
Those are all built on passions, on people just going down tangents and not even related to VFX necessarily, just having a passion
Yeah.
about a hobby that then bleeds into visual effects at some point because a director says, "Oh, I'd like an effect which does X, Y, Z," and it's like, "Oh, that kind of feels like this thing that I'm interested in, separate
Yeah.
to comp or visual effects entirely."
It's super impressive to see that, and me having worked there myself, I was amazed by the talent and what they could pull off, and it was like a magic trick. I couldn't understand it. It was just amazingly impressive. And same thing with like other companies like ILM and how they sort of break ground, and Weta did as well, and lots of other companies in visual effects. It's innovators, right? It's sort of movie makers, 100%.
Mm,
It's like you're inventing new things along the way, and Foundry is like actually helping that a lot. Being such a big tool set for these sort of huge projects.
yeah, thanks for saying that. We try hard to find a balance between building tools that you can just use straight away, but also trying to build tool sets that you can then use to build your own creativity and solutions. And I think actually that's something that, doubling down on your point a little bit, for anyone
Mm.
listening, I think that innovator aspect, that coming into projects and thinking, how can I build something new or unique? How can I use the tools around me in a way that is different? I think that's a really interesting space where I see a lot of fantastic artists go on to build really great stuff. There's a guy, Mads Hagsbath. He builds a bunch of stuff in like things like Blink script inside of Nuke.
Ah,
There's a bunch of people doing stuff in the machine learning space. I think if you can explore those spaces, and you don't have to do the great big projects, but even just building a small gizmo that you can share around, I think that opens doors that you didn't even know could be there for you.
yeah, yeah, totally. It's fun to hear you talk about that, and I feel my experience with Nuke is like I only scratched the surface, and I just learned a couple of tricks to sort of for very specific parts, but it's so powerful. There's so much to learn. Like I feel like I know nothing about the software after using it for a very long time.
It's that curve, isn't it, where you think know loads, and then you
Yeah.
realize how much you don't know. It'll come up. Okay, I'm gonna start wrapping things up. I just want to
Hmm.
put a massive thank you first to Einar. I mean, what an amazing job you did on the splash screens. Every time I open Nuke and seeing them, it makes me smile. It makes me happy. So you clearly did a fantastic job. So a
Oh,
big thank
thank
you
you.
for that work, and a massive
Well,
thank
thank
you
you.
also for coming on this live stream and showcasing how you went about it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for thanks for saying that, and likewise, like it was a very humbling experience to be able to do this, and oh man, I appreciate it. So thank you, and
No,
having me on the live stream as well.
No, this is great. And obviously thank you to everyone who joined the live stream. I mean, there'll be more people who catch this on the recording, but it's so nice having people join and be with us and put the celebrations in the chat and all that kind of great stuff. So we love you so much for it, and thank you so much for joining and participating. If you
Yeah.
do want to see more things like this, please feel free to subscribe to the channel and like it. That gives us a good indication of, yeah, this is a positive thing that people want to keep seeing. And yeah, I guess, Aina, anything you want to finish off with?
No, I just want to say that thank you so much for watching and the questions, and yeah, I hope it was interesting to watch, and yeah, appreciate you taking the time out of your evening or wherever you are watching.
Definitely. Okay, but see you.
All right, see you.